जो आज की इकोनॉमी और भविष्य की इकोनॉमी में इम्पोर्टेंट सेक्टर्स हैं, उन सब डोमेन्स में रिसर्च करने के लिए और रिसर्च के बाद में उसको प्रोडक्ट लेवल तक ले जाने के लिए सपोर्ट इसमें दिया जाएगा.
Hello and welcome to Business Today. I am Siddharth Zarabi, and today on this episode of Easynomics, we are joined by a very special guest, Professor Abhay Karandikar, the Secretary of the Department of Science and Technology. And he is joining us today to help us understand and decode what is the government's plan behind the 1 lakh crore RDI scheme, as it is called. What does it mean for innovation? What does it mean for the furtherance of science and technology in India, and to reach 2047 a Viksit Bharat status as a tech driven economy? Professor Karandikar, thank you very much for joining us on Business Today. We usually do market, stocks, company specific conversations. So today's episode of Easynomics is different, but hopefully it will address some of the questions that people in industry, our startups and entrepreneurs might have. And I want you to first explain what is this 1 lakh crore RDI fund, because governments are known for announcing massive schemes and with substantial capital outlays, but the devil always lies in the details. Tell us more about this scheme.
So this, I think, I should say that research, development, and innovation scheme that has been announced is, one of the most transformative steps for spurring the R&D in private sector. So I think in the past we have done many schemes and many initiatives to fund the R&D in academia, in universities, in research labs, but there has never been a scheme to fund R&D in private sectors. And by private sector, I mean both corporates, in the large corporates, as well as the startups. So this scheme was approved by the Union Cabinet on July 1st. And this year, out of the 1 lakh crore, the 20,000 crore provision has already been made in this year's budget. The primary objective of this scheme is to invest in R&D projects which will be done in private sectors, including corporates and the startups. Under this fund, a deep tech fund of funds will also be initiated.
Okay. What is it in terms of specific objectives that you expect to be achieved in terms of the outcome from this substantial budget that you are proposing? How will it be dispersed? What are the timelines, and how many years do you think this scheme will take to reach some substantial results?
Okay. So first of all, this fund will be set up as a special purpose fund within the Anusandhan National Research Foundation. As you know, that Anusandhan National Research Foundation was established last year. Its governing board is chaired by the Honorable Prime Minister. Now, the objective of this fund is to finance the projects which have a technology readiness levels like 4 and above. So basically, it is not funding basic research. The basic research will be anyway funded by the ANRF through its scheme. This fund is more to take the technology from a lab scale stage to a commercializable product or the market stage. This fund will invest in sunrise sectors. The primary intent behind this fund is that generally, the private sectors have shied away from investing in R&D in deep tech areas or cutting edge sectors, primarily because the research in these sectors have long gestation period and with uncertainty on return on investments, etc. So this fund will actually mitigate the initial risks And once the initial risks are mitigated, hopefully, it will catalyze the further investment for at the growth stage. Now, this fund therefore has identified certain cutting edge or sunrise sectors, which includes, let's say energy transitions or clean energy or climate change, biotechnology, synthetic biology, pharma, and also, biomanufacturing, and other deep tech sectors like quantum or robotics or space or defense technology, artificial intelligence and machine learning and its applications in several other sectors, whether it is healthcare and so on. And the digital economy, including, let's say, precision agriculture or climate resilient agriculture. So these are really the sunrise deep tech sectors which have been identified initially. Of course, any other sectors can also be added later on with the approval of the empowered group of secretaries. Now, this scheme, as I mentioned, will be set up as a special purpose fund within ANRF, but the ANRF will not invest directly. This fund will identify some second level fund managers. And these second level fund managers could be alternate investment funds, AIF, or they can be non-banking financial institutions, or they can be developmental financial institutions, or they can be organizations such as BIRAC of DBT or TDB of DST or IIT's research parks. So this fund will give the funding to these second level fund managers, and these second level fund managers will then identify the project and finance them. Now, we have several financial instruments. Either, funding will be through very long-term concessional loans or through the equity investments in the startups. So I think that is, basically the broad mechanism. Now,
Professor Karan,
regarding the timeline you asked,
yes,
yeah.
go ahead, sir.
No, you said regarding the timeline you asked, as I mentioned, that this year, 20,000 crores has been allocated, and as we keep investing, maybe the 1 lakh crore will get deployed in the next 5 to 6 years.
Fair point. I want to understand from you in terms of the model and the fund of funds approach and second level fund managers, what is the thinking of the decision makers behind adopting this kind of a structure? Does it mirror any other similar government funded approach anywhere else in the world?
Well, anywhere else in the world, yes, it mirrors. I mean, there are funds, for example, in other countries. Let's say Israel is having Israel Authority. So there are many sovereign public funds in many countries. Singapore is also having such funds. Then there are funds in the European countries also, where the government has set up sovereign public funds which has invested in the private sectors, whether it is the startups or in the corporates, in areas of national priorities which these governments have defined. Of course, as I mentioned, that we have also defined certain, sunrise sectors. So it does, it does have a parallel in many other countries, but in our countries, typically, we have not invested in R&D in the private sectors by the government. And in that sense, I should consider this to be a very bold initiative by the government for encouraging the private sector to scale up the R&D in the cutting edge areas in their labs.
Fair point, Professor Karandikar, and for the benefit of our viewers, I completely endorse this fundamental shift in approach from only funding from the government balance sheet, the public sector R&D initiatives, and there are several of them that we know about, towards funding the private sector. That is a very laudable move. However, I want to understand, why did we not adopt a model that I am describing it just for the sake of captioning the argument, like a sovereign tech fund, a government owned quasi financial institution that defines and decides that it will invest in early stage startups or have some eligibility criteria and directly takes equity stakes in these companies and nurtures them, and possibly then benefits from the time when a successful startup goes public and the taxpayer also gets paid back. Why was that approach not opted for?
No, no, no. This is actually very similar because, I mean, this is just an operational mechanism. So eventually, yes, I mean, this fund will get deployed to the second level fund manager, and they will hold equity, and finally, the second level fund manager can deploy it further, and eventually the government will get benefited if the companies do well. So obviously, that is the
No,
objective.
my point,
Now,
Professor Karandikar,
why
was why is there a second level layer?
yeah, yeah. So I will just yeah, just I'm just coming to that. So why we did not thought that we did not think that a government can directly invest, because the expertise that exists with the government for evaluating the business plan of the companies, etc., better lies with the industry professionals and fund managers, who, with the help of technical experts. So each of these second level fund manager could be, for example, any alternate investment funds, AIFs, that has been set up, or it could be, for example, a fund set up by an IIT research park, for example, any IIT Madras research park, say, for example. Now they can, they will have the expertise for evaluating the right projects and making investment in them. And that is why, this two-tier model was thought. Some of the second fund managers could be sector specific also. For example, BIRAC, which is also a Department of Biotechnology entity, that has an expertise in evaluating the projects in the biotech areas. So out of this fund, we could give a portion of that, some money, and ask them that in the deep tech projects in the biotechnology area, the BIRAC can invest and take equity. I think that is the only difference. But otherwise, fundamentally, as a principle, it is a sovereign tech fund, and I would like you to believe that it is indeed a sovereign tech fund, where we are giving flexible financing both to the corporates as well as to the startups.
Okay, we will use that in our story, in our web stories and other coverage after this interview, with your permission. Who will be eligible for this funding? Because our startups and the good ones who have a successful idea, and I'm talking about tech startups, not about service led startups, are usually able to raise funds if they have started on a bootstrap basis, once they have some sort of prototype approach ready. What is the funding eligibility criteria and philosophy going to be?
Yes. So I think the funding eligibility criteria will be that the project should be really cutting edge. So that is one criteria. This fund will not be used to finance the routine R&D of, let's say, corporates, or the startups that you mentioned, whether they are in the service sectors or consumer electronics or consumer products. There should be some really deep tech element, let's say quantum technology, just for an example, or a very deep tech thing in robotics or in space. So it should be, so that is one criteria, definitely, that it should be cutting edge. Second criteria should be that, we are not, this is not a grant, this is an equity investment or a loan. So it should not be, a basic research leading to a paper or a patent only. It should be, a research which will lead to a commercializable product in certain sunrise sectors. So currently we have defined the sectors also, but we can add the sectors later on also. So these are the two major criteria which will be used. And of course, then we have to see the strength of the team and the competence of the team, the business plans, etc.
Professor Karandikar, when we see the kind of entities that you have mentioned as the second level fund managers, whether it is AIFs or NBFCs or development financial institutions, their methodology, and I am not even talking about commercial banks, their methodology for project assessment, appraisal and disbursal has a certain schematics of its own. Time is also of the essence when it comes to a startup's idea. Will these second level fund managers follow their usual practices in project appraisal or disbursal, or is the government going to set some parameters and benchmarks for fast appraisal and quick disbursal?
Absolutely. I think you are absolutely right that the second level fund manager, when they have their own funds, when they take decisions to invest, they may use some other criteria. For example, many of these funds are expecting very high rate of returns and they may therefore look for projects which have less risks, etc. But here, government is giving the money, and we would definitely like to set certain guidelines, broad guidelines, which fulfills the objectives of the fund. Within that broad guidelines, of course, the specific projects evaluations, etc., can be done by an investment committee of that fund. But we will be giving a broad guidelines under which these second level fund managers will have to operate, so that the ultimate objectives of these funds are realized, and the ultimate, really the long term objective of this fund is that we as a country become a product nation and are able to catalyze the private sector investments in doing the cutting edge R&D. So I think that is the long term goal, and to that extent the government has taken this decision of taking that initial risks. So therefore, we would like the second level fund managers to not really worry about very high rate of returns, etc., but really see that we support, the private sector to take the lead in the research and development in the priority sectors that we have defined.
Professor Karandikar, in terms of the sectors and the broad model, you are absolutely right. But when it comes to government money, and I have, as our viewers would also know, that every single rupee has to be accounted for. Private sector venture capital is able to do very massive write-offs, write-downs in subsequent valuation rounds as well, because their model is very different from what it would be for government money. And in my understanding of sovereign wealth funds globally, they have a different kind of approach. Therefore, my question is that when it comes to Bharat Sarkar ka paisa, how will government ensure oversight, and depending on the size of equity that you take, will the government also seek board positions either directly or through nominees?
No, no, no. So I think first of all, government is not seeking board positions directly, because as I mentioned, that it is the second level fund managers which are doing the investments in the startups or the sectors. But coming back to your question of Bharat Sarkar ka paisa and its accountability. Clearly, we need some transparency. But for this fund, we are in the process of making the liberalized financial rules, which will be different from the government's general financial rules (GFR). In fact, that is there in the cabinet approval also, that for this fund to operate, we have to have some liberalized financial rules, which are not so strict as are there within the government spending. So that liberalized rules and guidelines will definitely be set up. We would need some level of transparency and responsibility, but obviously we do recognize that deployment of this fund will have risks. Some projects may fail because we are really we are really chartering an unknown territory of doing R&D in the cutting edge. So some of the projects may really fail. And in that sense, we are cognizant of this fact that this is going to be a risky investment and therefore will require a little liberalized financial rules. So to that extent, I think I would again emphasize that this is really the first time the government has taken such a bold initiative.
No, I absolutely agree, Professor Karandikar, and in my experience, this is obviously an absolute first, and we know how difficult it is, as per government existing procedures, to even contemplate such an idea. It has taken us 2 decades of debate to reach nowhere when it comes to a sovereign wealth fund, where even the basic argument of whether you will invest a surplus or whether you will continue to seek a surplus by being proactive in investments, even that has not been settled.
Right.
You are obviously aware of it. One more follow up to this point, and this is to do with, by when do you expect the operationalization of this scheme, and when will that first day be where the first monies from this fund are dispersed? How long will it take? Because in my experience, putting and crossing the T's and dotting the I's in the government setup takes a lot of time.
I think we are in the process of now finalizing the guidelines, and also, as I mentioned, these liberalized financial rules. I am expecting that everything like the process of selecting the second level fund managers, the liberalized guidelines and liberalized financial rules will be in place in next 3 months. And your question of when will the first check will go out this fund, I am expecting that by December we should be in a position to do so, December, January. So I think that is a timeline. And next 3-4 months, I think all guidelines and all rules, detailed guidelines and detailed rules should be in place. I'm confident that we will be able to do as fast as we can, and I don't see any reason for any apprehensions that it will get delayed further, because a lot of background work has already been done already.
Fair point. When it comes to government money being utilized or dispersed in any form, along with government money, there is also a process of audit. I want to understand, will these grants or dispersals be subject to the standard process of government audit through the existing structure?
No, I think that is the reason. I think I must say that that is the reason we followed this two-tiered structure. The second level fund manager exactly is this. So it will not follow the same audit process as happens in the government institutions or in the public institutions. But we would, of course, would want, the transparency and, some level of accountability. But at the same time, it will be built in that these are going to be risky investments in sunrise sectors, and there is always a chance that some can fail. Of course, we have to see that deliberate misuse doesn't happen, but as long as it is a genuine risk-based failures, I think that will get accepted. So we are not going to subject this to a similar audit procedures as it happens in a typical government-sponsored project.
Again, I must say that, and I compliment the government and the Union Cabinet led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and all of you, you are an eminent scientist yourself who are involved, because this is a very, very brave and necessary step. And I am trying to keep my natural doubt as a journalist, I am keeping it curbed, because experience suggests that when it comes to sarkari money, even the person who is getting it might have second thoughts. As we wrap up this conversation, I want to ask you, some of the most fantastic technological developments in the digital age have come from this agency called DARPA. You, of course, are aware of it.
Yes.
I am sure many of our viewers are also aware of this United States agency called DARPA, which has whose funding, initial funding, seed money has led to some of the biggest technological breakthroughs of the millennium. Can I say that if not in size, but at least in ambition, India is looking at DARPA as a role model?
Absolutely. And I think why this fund is housed in ANRF is actually a reflective of this, because ANRF's core funding is really funding the basic research from, let's say, TRL level 1 to TRL level 3 in academic institutions, research labs, and universities. And this fund, in some sense, you can say that will take that research from a prototype scale to a product scale. So we'll complete like this full cycle from really a basic idea stage to a technology development stage. And we are hoping that by creating this framework, we will be able to achieve some breakthroughs. And just like what, as you mentioned, DARPA did in the US. So I mean, that is really our wish, and also, our hope that we will be able to motivate our young innovators or our private sectors to venture into that direction.
Professor Karandikar, I compliment you and your colleagues who have piloted this, and of course, uh, earlier I also had a brief conversation with the Minister for Science and Technology. But as I end this conversation, I just want you to come back to a point, with your permission, which is that wouldn't it have been far more sensible from a dispersal and quick outcomes approach to have genuinely considered a straightforward model? Because it's not that previous governments have not tried to fund R&D both at the basic or the prototype pre-commercialization levels. The sense I get is that there will be several hoops that a entity which seeks to get money will have to pass through, sir.
No, I think I didn't understand. Are you saying that the current model is complex, or is that what
Yes,
you're saying?
yes.
No, no, no. Actually, I don't think so, because once these second level fund managers are created, it's only for actual projects. It will be just a one entity that they have to deal with. As far as suppose if I am seeking for an investment, let's say if I am a startup and if I am seeking an investment, then I will be told that here is, let's say I'm a biotech company and I have designed a very working in a very cutting edge area, let's say cell or gene therapy, and I'm looking for a startups. And if BIRAC or some other entity has been identified as the second level fund manager, I will simply apply to that, and I will expect that the investment committee there will make a quick decisions, and I will get the required critical funding, immediately. Today, it is not possible because the amount of funding which is available, let's say with BIRAC or any other such fund, is very limited. And for a very cutting edge biotech company or a drug discovery company, which takes a long time for development, the funds are not investing because there is an inherent risks in that, and they are not very certain. So for a project, I think it is just one level of appraisal, and we are expecting that the process should be simple and should not be complex. So, I mean, as the secretary or as the department which will be steering this, once we have deployed this fund, this will be our job to see that the fund dispersal does not take much time.
I certainly believe that all the good intent that you have will translate into action on the ground level, and it's very clear, viewers, that at 20,000 crore, as seems to be suggested for the first year, and subsequently. And I'm sure if the scheme really takes off, future cabinet decisions could perhaps also look at an expansion depending on the outcomes. But very clearly, this is a very, very marked break from past practice, where the government is now going to back private sector entrepreneurs, innovators, researchers to solve some of the biggest problems that we have and ensure that India is also able to ride the deep tech wave that is propelling growth all across the world. Professor Karandikar, thank you very much for your time with us today. Really enjoyed this conversation, and thank you once again for taking all those questions. Hopefully, somebody who hopes to apply to such a fund will benefit from this conversation and will be clearer about how to go about it. We'll keep coming back to this matter as the plan evolves. Until then, I wish all of you goodbye. I'll see you again. Time for a short break. Do stay tuned in to Business Today.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.